One of the things that we do at Daggerfinn are PR and market survey services. And at the beginning of this year, really at the end of last year, one of our clients came to us and asked if we could do some digging into whether the Great Resignation was going to have a prolonged effect over 2022 and 2023. And with that, of course, we would build a PR campaign to try and drive brand awareness and backlinks and different ways to grow their business over the course of this year. And some of the insights I thought were very interesting that we were able to garner from the survey and would be relevant to our audience here at Daggerfinn. And so I just wanted to share first the insights that we gathered from the survey and how it relates to the Great Resignation and hiring in 2022, 2023, but also be a little bit prescriptive around how companies can leverage some of the insights that we've gathered to close the hiring gap or address some of the employer brand needs that they may have as we enter this year. At the macro level, the findings of the survey were that in contrast to the last 2 years, or really since the beginning of the start of the pandemic, where individuals were really, a lot of the fluidity in the job market was happening because individuals were worrying about their health and worrying about the flexibility and taking advantage of what was maybe the one of the most candidate-friendly job markets in a long time to find a role that matched their preferences across flexibility, across benefits, and as a result of that, even take less pay to find a role that checked more boxes, so to speak, on their personal checklist. And what we found in our data going into 2022 is that the shift is back towards salary, which is the traditional motivator for job movement, which speaks a little bit about kind of what might have happened over the last 2 years. And so we'll posit that individuals, because there's been so much churn in the job market over the last 2 years, individuals have really been able to find the roles or have moved into roles where they've been able to match up their preferences across flexibility and benefits. And what that means is like now from that point, they can look forward and say, all right, well, the next step that I'm going to take, if I take one, is going to be compensation driven. And that speaks to a shift in the mentality, I think, of workers post Great Resignation. And so, of course, as an employer branding and a growth firm, how do we be prescriptive about that information? Well, the first is that companies are going to have to make decisions across a few different strategies or tactics. And the first is that they're probably going to have to invest in compensation if their balance sheets allow for it. I heard from an executive recently that there's a reality or a realization that most workers at any company in the market right now can leave and find a role for $10,000, $20,000 more with no real difficulty. I thought that was a great insight because it really speaks to how executives are thinking about their workforces at the moment. And the realities of what is probably the tightest labor market for employers that we've seen for a long time. And so if companies have the ability to leverage their balance sheet a little bit to invest in compensation, then that's probably one of the levers that you're going to need to pull as we go into 2022 to make sure that you can retain the workforce that you have. The second is to highlight opportunities for growth. This taps into the mentality of the younger workers who there's been a shift again in the way that work is perceived and things like promotions and salary bumps and things are expected. They've shrunk the time scale with which those are expected now. And so if you can show as an employer that you have a very clear game plan or growth trajectory for 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, and people can look forward to the next steps in their career, that's a great thing to highlight in your employer brand because it's attractive to a certain set of younger workers typically who are willing to sacrifice a touch of compensation for the opportunity to have a higher job title than their peer group, for example, and to be able to showcase status in that way. And then the third component, I think, of taking advantage of this survey, of this data that we've derived, is that industry perception is important. And so if you're a company that's operating in an industry that's on fire at the moment, think tech, think anything that Tesla is in, for example, automotive, electric cars. If your industry is attractive to be in and where a lot of individuals are flocking to, crypto is another one that I think is coming to mind as I'm saying this. then lean into that perception. Go hard on the marketing messaging around how your company is a figure in these industries, in these markets, because that'll help you attract the kind of workers that you need. And if you're on the other side of the coin, to where you're operating in an industry where the perception is neutral to negative, working on that industry perception, even at the level of your firm, is a good idea as a long-term play. But showing that how you're different, that there's an opportunity, for example, for a niche manufacturer to really highlight some of the things around growth and compensation, and how the industry is cool, for example, for in that niche market to separate yourself. And so leaning into the differences, how you're different than the industry norm, is a good way to differentiate your employer brand from the industry, as the industry as a whole needs to up the perception, at least, of its attractiveness to the worker. And so between those three prescriptions, investing in compensation, highlighting opportunities for growth, and then leaning into industry perception, you've got a little bit of a game plan there, to where your talent acquisition and employer brand efforts can start to close the gap, and protect, of course, your current workforce from being a part of this great churn at the moment, where people are leaving for marginal levels of compensation on the grand scheme of things over the course of a career. So hopefully some of that data is helpful to you and your firm as you do some strategic planning for 2022. We do this kind of survey taking and analysis all the time. So feel free to reach out to us if that's something that you feel like would be beneficial to your firm, and drive a little bit of growth, because you're able to put something into the market to where it's proprietary to your firm, and you're saying something cool to where you get picked up in the press. Let us know. Let us know, of course, your thoughts in the comment section below around what you feel is happening in the job market in 2022, and whether that's different at all from what you felt in 2021 and 2022.